Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the All Around Atlanta Sports Podcast, or Atlanta Teen Sports Center, whatever you prefer to call us. I'm your host, Blake Newsome, joined by the birthday boy yesterday, Connor Quinn. And Connor, how does it feel back to be on the show? Because it has been about, I think, a week since our last show, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but I'm ready to talk some more Braves.
And, sorry, I guess for the background noise, so that will go away just a second. Okay, that was just, my mom was taking my dog outside. As I said, I don't have a professional setup. I just do this from my house, so sorry if you're going to have some background interference. Anyway, so today's episode is basically we're going to talk about the Braves' first season recap, talk about the All-Star game and Aaron Ciarte. Congratulations to him. And while, of course, we're live on Instagram. I know people don't really get the key because we don't do the show live. We do the Instagram live, but make sure to follow me so you know to go on live whenever we have a podcast for the fans out there. It's Blake_Newsome, BLAKE. That's BLAKE _NEWSOM. So make sure to follow me, not because I want you to, but so when I start a live video, you'll know that it's a podcast. This is normally when I start a live video for. But anyway, we'll jump right into the show now. Basically, what's been going on lately is the Braves have actually surprised a lot of people for the first half of the year. Supposedly going to be another one of the bottom teams and another long year for the Braves, especially with acquiring a bunch of veterans that when they're trying to rebuild, which it seems like what the Hawks are doing too right now. But let's not talk about that. That's for another episode. But Connor, I'm going to get to you of basically what do you think was the biggest key of the Braves of how they've been able to stick together, especially through the Freddie Freeman injury, with the people getting called up and down all the time. It looks like the first half of the year. What do you think the Braves' key has been able to stay together and be able to stay a good team like they have been the first half of the year?
Well, it was just a matter of teamwork is basically the key to their success, or at least improvement. For like when Freddie was injured, they called up players like Rio Ruiz. They got, of course,
Matt Adams.
Matt Adams, yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay,
sorry about that pause. Anyway, so they got Matt Adams to keep him at first, and of course he's a big bat on offense, so he can hit it over the wall as well as Freddie can. And I just think it was a matter of trying to just as they were imagining that Freddie was still there, and they still played like he was still there and got some wins.
And yeah, it seems like the Braves, looks like they're about to fall down the hill there as they were looking 8, 9, 7 games below 500 after Freddie Freeman went down. Matt Adams came out. They took a few runs over Cincinnati. It looks like that series got them in the driver's seat as they were able to pull themselves back, and they're hovering right around 500, which is what I expected for this season. But it seemed like they've been able to come out and they've been able to do well. And it looks like, based on what the division looks like, I know we're only 2.5 games above fourth place, but if the Nationals, who haven't hit their slump yet, it looks like if they can hit their slump, which you know they will, especially after they've played us. I mean, they were lucky to come out with the split in that series. Looks like we should have taken at least 3 of those games. But if the Braves would have been able to come out with another one of those wins, I think the Braves would have came out stronger, and if the Nats hit their slump at the same time as our stride, I think we have still a great chance at the postseason. Don't you, Connor?
Yeah, I do believe that they have a big chance in getting that wild card if they can keep winning some games.
I think, to be honest, though, I think we have a better chance of winning the division. Here's why: the NL West, the NL West is super crazy right now with the Dodgers streaking past everybody, and then the Rockies and the Diamondbacks and their division not far behind are taking up both of the wild card spots, and both of them I think have a better record than the Nationals. So I think we have a better chance of winning the division and going into the divisional round than playing the wild card team as a wild card. But anyway, we'll go back into the Freddie Freeman injury, and basically then we'll get into some of Bartolo Colon talk, who's been picked up by the Twins here in a minor league contract here over the last few days. But we'll get into that in just a second. First, we'll start out with Freddie Freeman's injury. As I was saying, the Braves looked like they were about to slide downhill there with going 7, 8, 9 games under 500. They stuck together, and they're still about a 500 team right now, which is, I think, pretty good for what their record was going into the All-Star break last year, which is, I believe, something like 31-58. This year we're 3 games below. I take that any day over, based on what the team that we have and our future. I'm fine with that, especially with our chance that we have, our open door to the playoffs still, with a lot of time left. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, but hopefully the Braves can pull it out. And Connor, I want to get your thought on how Freddie Freeman's big way has come back from the injury and how I think the Braves were able to hold up and have these pieces come up from Gwinnett, as they've been able to stay a pretty good team with Freddie Freeman being injured all that time and has just come back and has already had a big impact. So, Connor, give me your thoughts on how the Braves have gone down the last 3 months with Freddie Freeman's injury.
Well, he's played well. I'm very pleased by the way he's playing because everyone estimated that he wasn't going to be back until next month around mid-August, and he's just played outstanding for the injury that just took place, and you think that he would still be trying to get some of that power back into his wrist, but he's played awfully well. That's what those 2 games were when he was playing down in Gwinnett. He played outstanding, and he came up and is showing it so far, and he has 2 home runs so far when he went back up here in the majors.
And I think he's got a hit, not yawning on camera, I think he's got a hit on pretty much every game that he's come back with. And the thing is, he's been accepting to be able to play third base, with I think Rio Ruiz is supposedly his backup for right now. I think either him or Adonis, I think they're both in Gwinnett, but for right now, he's the third baseman to be able to keep Matt Adams' bat in the lineup because that's what the Braves have needed to boost him. And I think, has Matt Adams hit any home runs since, I think he hit 1 since Freddie's gotten back, right?
Yeah, he won against Nationals.
Yeah, and he's also had, I think it looks like to be honest, his swing has kind of gone under pressure now that Freddie's back. He's like, oh boy, they've gained me the position because I've hit and so on. Now I got to keep doing that because based on the last few games and Freddie's return, I don't think Matt Adams has looked as strong as he was. Hopefully he's able to keep the way he is. Otherwise, he might go into a slump himself. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But that's just based on what I've seen the last few days and Freddie's return as Matt Adams has kind of slumped here. He's gotten a hit or 2, but not what he needs if he's going to keep the position over Freddie. But anyway, let's get into Bartolo Colon. As I said earlier a few weeks ago, legitimately, I said if the Braves release him or they trade him, the only team that's going to want to pick him up is a team that's right on the playoff line and just needs the extra player to push him over. That's basically what the Twins' position are. I believe that's the position that the Twins are in right now. It looks like they're hovering around the playoff line, and they need somebody to push them over the top to be able to get some run and have a spot in the playoffs. So definitely be interesting to see. But hopefully the Twins are able to keep him. Hopefully the Twins. I wish Bartolo well with the Twins. I mean, he's in the minor league, so it might not work out like the Braves did with Ryan Howard earlier this year. They released him after being in the minor leagues, not hitting that well. So we'll have to see. But for right now, I think it'll be interesting to see how he performs with the Twins. And Connor, what are your overall thoughts? And sorry for the background noise, guys. What are your thoughts on how Bartolo performed with the Braves, and how do you think he's going to do with the Twins?
Well, it's just unfortunate how he performed with the Braves because we picked him up when he's just come off of being with the Mets, and he was just still being a really hot pitcher even in his last outing with up in New York. And I was just so excited to see him come pitch for us because I thought he was just gonna go knock him down like Julio does. But unfortunately he didn't play as well, and I wish him the best with Minnesota. But it's really unfortunate how he played with us, considering about how well he pitched up in New York.
And the fun fact is once he became a New York Met, I think he made a bunch of starts at Turner Field, and he only lost one of them. I was there for a few of the games, and apparently he always had a great game when he was playing the Braves in Turner Field. He'd always get a hit or so, and he'd always have at least 6 or 7 strikeouts, and he'd get the win, except for one game where they were able to hit him. But the Braves were usually able to struggled against him at home, like when Bartolo was pitching. And then when they picked up R.A. Dickey and Bartolo Colon, I expected Bartolo to actually perform better than R.A. Dickey, because R.A. Dickey is not, let's be honest, he's not the same Cy Young guy he was a few years ago, especially that once New York traded him to Toronto, he's kind of slumped down, but hopefully he's able to keep, he seemed like he's been poised to be able to get back, and he's, at his age, he's been able to perform pretty well, I'd say, with the Braves, and not having to throw the fastball, as I was talking to my mom the other day, saying that he's not had to throw the fastball just as Bartolo has. He has the knuckleball to rely on. So it shows that maybe it depends on the type of pitcher you are. But it's strange because I thought he would be better than R.A. Dickey, but R.A. Dickey has come out a lot better. But anyway, let's move on to the All-Star talk. As we said, the Braves are 42-45 going into the break, and I've also come across Inciarte getting his first All-Star appearance in his second year with Atlanta. And this looks like he's going to be a great addition. I mean, he's not in the starting lineup, but hopefully he'll get in a bat based on how Atlanta's been the last few years. I believe Shelby Miller a few years ago that he got in. It was before he started struggling. It was I think it was Shelby that got to the All-Star game, but he was never he never really made it into the game. But and then Tehran he pitched an inning last year. He was pretty good. And then now Inciarte, he's going to come in. Hope for the best that he'll get a hit, because if he's going to be the only Brave that's in the game. So hopefully he comes in and gets a hit. If he strikes out, that's oh well. That's the Braves' appearance in the All-Star game. But hopefully he does pretty well and he comes out with the win. Comes out with the hit, and hopefully he'll score. How exciting do you think this is for his family, Connor, on the scale?
Oh, I think it's very good. I think it's great for Ender Inciarte. I know he's going to be a reserve, but hopefully, I assume that he's going to come in the later innings, like 7, 8, or 9. And I hope I'm excited to see him perform in the All-Star game, considering he's a defending Gold Glove champion his last year, and he's definitely a contender for this year as well.
Mm-hmm. And let's just get the NL National League back in the win column. I think it's like 4 straight years that the AL has won in a row. And it was funny because Chipper, in his final few years, the Braves won the National League won 3 in a row. And the Braves had 4 or 5 people on the All-Star team every year. It seems like it's flipped around. AL has won 3 or 4 in a row. And the Braves have failed to show people in the All-Star game. I remember back in, I believe it was 2012, when we had 6 people in the game. We had Michael Bourne, Martin Prado, Chipper, Freddie, Dan Ugla, and I think it was Hayward. I think we had a bunch of those players in the game. But it was pretty, and I think Kimbrel was in it too, so we had 6 or 7 people in the game one year. It was crazy, but that was when the Braves, I think, were a contender. Now we're kind of a team that's rebuilding and looking, the future looks bright, but we're not there yet. Hopefully I think next year, we're definitely in the playoff race, but I don't know if we make the playoffs, but I think we definitely contend with the Nationals next year, especially if we get a good free agent signing this year. One thing we especially need is a closing pitcher. Our setup and closing have been awful. A few years ago, back before the start of 2015, Jim Johnson, who was our current closer, was supposed to be our 7th inning setup, then moving on to Grilli for the 8th, Kimbrel the 9th. They traded Kimbrel along with B.J. Upton in his contract to dump him the day before the All-Star game. I'm mixing up my words, guys. Before the start of the 2015 season, with Cameron Maybin and a few other pieces from the Padres. Cameron Maybin, because I was actually at the game that year to start the year in Miami. He didn't get there until about the 6th or 7th inning and got subbed in, but he got a substitution was put in, and he was put in center field. And even though they traded him away at the end of the year, I think he had a good career 1 year with the Braves. But now Kimbrel looks like he's still a top 3 closer in the league with Boston right now. It hurt my heart the other day when I was watching a recommended video for me on YouTube of him coming in to pitch the game with the Welcome to the Jungle song and the fire on the jumbotrons and stuff. It just hurt my heart because I just remember as a littler kid, being able to get fired up when he was coming in, and I knew he'd do a good job. But now you can't. It's weird because a few years ago we were always saying, "Oh, we love our bullpen, thank God for it." Now we're more of a team that's like, "Oh God, what is our bullpen doing?" As they blew a 4-1 lead to the Nationals in the bottom of the 9th last a few days. I think it was Friday night, and the Nationals walked it off in the 10th by a final score of 5-4. But it seems like the Braves definitely need to set a better closing staff now that Grilli gone in Toronto, who's back to his setup job. And who was actually an all-star with Pittsburgh, but never really was a guy for Atlanta. And then Jim Johnson, not performing that well. Vizcaino, who's switching between the closer and setup, is hurt with I think it's an injured index finger. He's down in AAA, I think. So it's really not the best situation for the Braves. I mean, Sam Freeman has come up and done a pretty good job. Jose Ramirez has been able to come out and do a few innings, but you think the Braves would be able to have the great bullpen that they had a few years ago, like Chris Medlin, I hear, who's back to a relieving job, and Matt Whistler, who's in the bullpen. You think those guys that have been on the team before have been able to you think they should be able to bring up, or at least some of the people from AA or AAA that are their top prospects that they're talking about are going to be the star of the team in a few years, bring them up while they can in the situation that we're in and see how they perform for the future. I mean, who knows? But I definitely think that Jim Johnson, I mean, if he can get better, I think he can definitely, if he can get back on track, I should say, he can be a good start closer for the last few years of his career. But for right now, what I'm seeing, I think he definitely needs a replacement. Based on, I think he's had like seven blown saves this year, and his ERA is like over 4 or 5, so it's not that good definitely for a closing pitcher. Connor, what are your thoughts on how the Braves what do you think of the Braves setup and closing staff?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the? You can stop shooting basketball, to be honest. But what are your?
Shooting basketball.
Okay, whatever. What are your thoughts on the Braves setup and closing staff?
Yeah, it wasn't what it once was, and they're definitely in a long rebuild, like you said. Those young pitchers, I just don't think it's going to work out like other teams can do, like the Royals. They did the same thing back in 2015 when they went all the way and won the World Series. It's just different for some teams, and sometimes it's the luck of the draw of what young pitcher you get. And it's the same thing with the bullpen. Sometimes you have young guys in there who, Matt Whistler, who was a starting pitcher, but then he didn't play as well as in his starting job, so they put him in the bullpen.
To be honest, I actually liked him. Before the start of the season, I thought he'd be better than Foltynewicz because Foltynewicz has been up here the last 2 years and hasn't been able to perform well. So they put in Whistler, and he's done a pretty good job. But the Braves kept their posture with Mike Foltynewicz. They gave him a third chance this year, and he was able to come through. He's had a pretty good job this year. One guy that you've not been that happy about is Sean Newcomb, Connor. Give me your thoughts on why you haven't really. I mean, he hasn't had the most run support, but tell me why you think he would be better off doing something else, like in the AAA for now, or like in the bullpen. Tell me what you think he should do and why you don't really like him that much for right now.
Well, it's not the fact that I don't like the way he pitches. It's just I think they brought him up too early. Like he was still getting in his groove down in Gwinnett, and they thought it was good enough for him to bring him up in the majors. But I just don't think he's ready yet.
I mean, the whole reason they brought him up was because of I think Cologne, but to be honest, I'd rather have Chris Medlin up from the minors, who's been in the majors before. Yeah. Didn't he start the 2012 wild card game? I believe he did. He struck out the side in the first inning.
And then he just got in a slump and they set him back in the minors.
I know, but I think they traded him away, and ever since then he's not really been the pitcher he was. But looks like he's back. 5 years later, but he was definitely I don't know how hot he throws his hand now, but he was definitely like a high 90s guy. He was started out as a reliever, came back and he was a starter, but he was also able to be a reliever when they needed to. Like let's say the game went into the 12th, 13th inning, he was able to come in and pitch a few innings for Atlanta. But hopefully, I'd like to see him come up and pitch to see how he is, because I definitely like Medlin and his chances at coming back. What are your overall thoughts on Medlin?
I think Medlin is really good. I remember watching him back in 2013 when our team was playing outstandingly well.
Yep, 96 and 66.
What's that?
Yeah, we went 96 and 66, yeah.
Yeah, I just love the way he performed. He played outstanding each outing. Even if he didn't win, he played a great game. I mean, it's just, like you said, Blake, since he's been with other teams, it's just, he's not the pitcher that he once was, but I hope that he's rising back up to his potential here soon. Yeah,
and I think let's just move on to the final topic before we wrap this up at 4 o'clock officially. We'll go on to the Braves' upcoming schedule. As we said earlier, they are 42 and 45, second in the National League East, as they start out with actually a pretty rough 6 games, pretty rough actually start to the year, or start of the second half of the year, as they take on the Diamondbacks at the very first few opening nights of the start of the second half which I think that will be a tough outcome for Atlanta, especially how Houston dominated us those 2 nights. Now you got another team who's fighting for the division, but if not, they're definitely a wild card team. The Diamondbacks with Shelby Miller and what's his name? Shelby Miller and who they else they trade away? They traded Shelby for somebody, didn't they?
Yes, they traded Shelby Miller for Ender Inciarte, remember?
And Swanson's pick, but didn't they traded away somebody else with Miller? I can't remember who it was. Anyway, Greinke and I think Miller have finally been able to come back out of their woes that they've been in the last few years, and they've been able to settle themselves. But the Diamondbacks have finally come out of their shell after what they were a few years ago. Especially after in the early 2000s when we were toddlers, they were a dominant team in the National League. But now that it seems like they've settled back into what they were, and looks like they're still contenders for this year. Moving on to the Cubs series, the defending champs who are still, and the National League Central is pretty whacked up right now. As I think the Brewers are in first place by 2 or 3 games, with the Cardinals and Cubs just struggling a little around 500 around the situation that we're in, and they're fighting for the second spot. Who can still come out with the division if they have a good second half? And basically, while we're at it, talking about the Cardinals, Connor, do you want me to tell our podcast the joke of what we made about ESPN baseball?
Oh yeah, it always seems like on Sunday or Monday Night Baseball they're always showing the Cardinals.
Yeah, so basically what I came up was ESPN baseball meetings. Be like, okay, what Cardinals game can we broadcast this week? Because it seems like it's always Yankees, Red Sox, a Cardinals game, or just somebody in the NL Central. It's
Cardinals Pirates. Seems like.
Yeah, it's always a Cardinals Pirates game, a Cardinals game in general. Yankees, Red Sox. It's always one of those few games. But even though there's a lot, the Braves used to be
on Cardinals Cubs.
Yeah, but that's still Cardinals in general. But it seems like the Braves who have been in the who were on, I think, Sunday Night Baseball a few times a year, a few years ago, are never on the spotlight anymore. We're never really on Saturday baseball on Fox anymore either. So it's pretty interesting of how Atlanta's on. And it seems like whenever we are on MLB on Fox, it's always when we're playing the Mets of all teams. Why can't it be somebody else, for God's sakes? But who knows? But I think the Braves have a chance of getting 1 or 2 wins against the Cubs. I don't really see them. I think they have a chance of being swept against the Diamondbacks. But then they have another tough stretch. Hopefully the Braves really need some wins here to start the year to get the momentum and to be able to stay in the division race to start the second half of the year. Because they basically have 3 games at home versus the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. Then they have 4 games out in L.A., who are the Dodgers are so freaking hot right now. And then they have another series on the road in Arizona to play the Diamondbacks. So this will definitely be a tough stretch for Atlanta. They definitely need to get a few wins out of the Dodgers if they can. That's going to be probably the toughest task. Get a few wins at home versus the Diamondbacks. But yeah, this will definitely be a tough stretch for Atlanta. And Atlanta definitely needs some wins to be able to stay in the race. Well, unless there's anything else you'd like to talk about, Connor, I think that pretty much wraps up our show. Oh, first, let's go back to the All-Star talk first and give our AL and NL predictions of who's going to win the Derby.
I think for the National League, I think Charlie Blackmon, and for the American League, Aaron Judge.
And for me, I have Aaron Judge if an American League player wins it, and for the National League, I have Giancarlo Stanton, just because he's the hometown kid right for this game, and the guy from the Reds. So I think he's on the White Sox now, or he retired. I can't remember, but he won it in front of the crowd just last year, or not just last year, a few years ago when the All-Star game was in Cincinnati. So it just depends. But I definitely think that the NL. Definitely think that Stanton can win it back-to-back and win it in front of the home crowd. We'll just have to see tonight, as this is the day that we're uploading it. The podcast is the day of the Home Run Derby. And make sure to watch if you're watching this just a few minutes after the Atlanta versus Chicago game on ESPNU, for the Summer League is starting out, as Bembry and John Collins have definitely put on a show the past few games. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up our show. Unless there's any other words you want to say, Connor?
Nope, I believe we covered it all.
And I definitely thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time, and I guess shop on Atlanta.